ESPN's Feast Week presented by Lowe's back in Uncasville, Connecticut for the Air Force Reserve Basketball Hall of Fame tip-off. We saw number 18 Michigan advance to the championship game. They now await the winner of South Carolina and Providence. Back with you, Chris Spatola, John Brickley, and in a year that's been defined by the freshmen, let's be honest, veterans are going to be key, and we've got plenty of them on display in this game.
We do. We have a lot. And I mean, earlier we saw Michigan, Charles Matthews put on a show, and then in this game, you've got Chris Silva and Alpha Diallo. Chris Silva, a monster inside, was the co-SEC Defensive Player of the Year last year, and Diallo a double-double machine, so physical. And then freshman, we saw Brazakis this morning, had a really good second half for him. But the backcourts in this game, A.J. Lawson right there in your screen, David Duke and A.J. Reeves for Providence, young but incredibly talented.
David Duke, the local product out of Providence, the co-preseason Big East Freshman of the Year. Our officials, Rob Riley, Bo Borowski, and Chuck Jones. And it's South Carolina controlling the opening tip-off of game number 2 of the Hall of Fame tip-off.
Providence starting in a zone here. They have mixed it in and out. Played a lot of zone against Wichita State. Played zone against Holy Cross. Start here tonight in the 2-3 zone. Want to see if South Carolina can make some shots from the perimeter early, John.
Ed Cooley changing things up for Providence, going with 3 freshmen in the starting lineup along with Reeves and Duke. It's Nichols. For South Carolina, a team that we mentioned led by A.J. Lawson, Chris Silva as well. And Trey Campbell has brought depth in the backcourt, the Georgetown transfer, as both these teams coming in with identical 2-1 records. Mike Kotsar, the junior, with the sky right to get South Carolina on the board.
Providence went man-to-man under out of bounds, so changing up the defensive look, and what a good sign for South Carolina to see Kotsar get a bucket early. Really struggled to score, particularly inside, making layups for Mike Kotsar.
Here's David Duke, has struggled out of the gates, but strong to the basket to get Providence on the board.
He has struggled, like you said, but he's so talented.
And Nichols, the block on the other end. And it will stay with South Carolina.
You mentioned Duke. He's got great size. He's 6'5", 198. With a block on the other end here from Jimmy Nichols Jr. But Duke is one of those guys, you know, he's got 11 turnovers in 3 games. He's got to play within himself, but the talent is there. He's one of the highly regarded freshmen coming out of high school last year.
Kotsar again, this time missing on the short jumper. Nichols comes down with it. Native of Conway, South Carolina, is Nichols. Part of this talented freshman class for Ed Cooley. Philippe Young tangled up, and possession will stay with Providence. Ed Cooley, in his 8th season guiding Providence, 5 straight trips to the NCAA tournament, but he told us this week this team is new to him. He's normally had veterans. This year he's got a lot of freshmen on his roster.
We heard both these coaches yesterday. They weren't complaining, but they were lamenting some of the issues, the growing pains that they're going through with their respective teams. South Carolina also in a zone, a 2-3 zone, typically a team that plays that aggressive man-to-man.
Turnover given back to South Carolina for Frank Martin, 7th season guiding South Carolina. Just a couple of years removed from that epic run to the Final Four, the first in program history. Here's A.J. Lawson from the corner off the mark with the 3. And there is Justin Minaya, the talented sophomore, with the putback.
Duke trying to save it under the opponent's basket. That is an absolute no-no.
South Carolina fouls on Trey Campbell in his first personal.
You just can't do this off the play here. Duke, thinks he's batting it back to a teammate. That is no-no number 1. Do not try to save it under your opponent's basket.
One of the most heralded recruits in Providence College history. Here's Diallo, bucket and the foul.
I tell you what, Alpha Diallo is a stud. He really does so many things out there on the floor. Look at him get to his spot, stop on a dime, rise up and knock down that shot. He is shooting over 50% from the field, 52% from three. He's taking 7 free throws a game. And really a continuation, John, from the Big East tournament he had last year. Averaged 19 points a game in the tournament, was their best player. Great start to the year so far.
Very versatile. We saw that against Holy Cross. Played all 5 positions in that win for the Friars. He gets on the board here for Providence College. Minaya, the left-handed shot. And Nichols reaching up high with that 6'8" frame.
6'8" and long.
Providence team that, as mentioned, made it to 5 straight NCAA tournaments. A lot of turnover this year for the Friars, losing 46% of their scoring from a year ago. As Campbell wave it off, though, as the foul before the shot. And that loss to Wichita State, what were your biggest takeaways from what happened to Providence in that game?
Well, again, I think they're still trying to figure out who they want to beat defensively. So they started that game in the zone, wanted Wichita State to beat them over the top. I thought Wichita State settled in nicely. And Providence needs A.J. Reeves on the floor. He got into some foul trouble. They need his scoring. He's been so good to start this season for them. They can go on droughts. They can struggle to score the basketball. And I thought against a team like Wichita State, just one too many of those where you're not scoring the basketball.
Great ball movement, unable to capitalize on the shot as Campbell. There is Silva tangled up underneath the basket with Diallo, and it will stay with the Gamecocks. Meanwhile, for South Carolina, a 17 win last year after 2 years removed from that Final Four run. Chris Silva, though, the focal point, one of 4 starters returning here for the Gamecocks. And a 2-1 start that they had. That loss to Stony Brook really opened the eyes for Coach Martin, telling us at yesterday's shoot-around. And yet, with a deep SEC, where do you see South Carolina in the landscape?
Well, rebuilding and trying to get there. I think to get A.J. Lawson to reclassify, a kid out of Ontario, Canada, I think was a huge pickup. He's had a good start. Keyshawn Bryant has been a really good find. But they need Silva and Kotsar. And those are the 2 senior, junior veterans they have. It gives them an interior presence. And what a good move right there by Kotsar to his left. He's got to be able to finish. If those 2 guys are their best players, I think this South Carolina team could be an upper half for the SEC type of team.
Kotsar, who's shooting over 60% early on in the season. And the travel by Nichols gives possession back to South Carolina.
Alpha Diallo is such a terrific athlete. Look at a back cut there, a nice pass. Finish at the rim, and here's Mike Kotsar going to his left. A little space underneath the defender, and one of the things Frank Martin said to us yesterday, he's got to make layups. I mean, he's getting good looks. He understands how to play the game. He's just got to finish. These teams are so physical, John, in how they play, particularly defensively.
Here's Silva, the kick out to Campbell. 9 on the shot clock for Lawson. Way off the mark with that 3, and Diallo tracks down the loose ball. Diallo asked to be the veteran leader for this young Friars team this year by Ed Cooley. Diallo averaging a double-double so far through 3 games this season, and a foul away from the ball will give the Gamecocks possession after this timeout. Good one so far between the SEC and the Big East. Providence, an early 1-point advantage.
Now, I mean, that win over Villanova was loud, and George Washington is young and rebuilding and all that, so don't take a whole lot away from that game. But Matthews is playing great. They got Jordan Poole back to who he is. Xavier Simpson is outstanding. And we know Brodzeikis, has been a nice story early in the season here for them.
Matthews, who had 25 points in the win earlier, as Michigan will see them tomorrow on ESPN at 1:30 Eastern in the championship game. Meanwhile, back and forth battle between South Carolina and Providence. As Campbell off to Hassani Gravett with 5 left on the shot clock. Campbell the floater in the lane. Malik White off the bench for Ed Cooley. And the rebound taken down by Kotsar. Kotsar strong to the bucket, off the mark. And Frank Martin talked about that in shoot-around yesterday, about the missed opportunities on the layup by his junior forward.
Yeah, I mentioned that a minute ago. I mean, this is the one area where Kotsar's getting looks. Part of it is playing through contact. Part of it is, I would assume, some confidence. That's a good move to his left hand to get there. Just gotta feel that thing off the glass.
His first team sport.
Here's White one-on-one with Gravett. Acrobatic shot, but the tip in there by Nate Watson, who's a very good inside threat for Providence.
He's lost 24 pounds over the last year. It's made him quicker, more explosive. You saw right there. Much quicker off the ground.
A viable option is Nate Watson. Has started off the year 13 of 18 from the field.
Oh, and they're not going to throw it into him. So he's a viable option from the standpoint that he's going to clean some things up, like that offensive board. I mean, he just follows the play on that and collects it. He's got that big body, although it's not as big as it was 24 pounds ago.
I thought it was interesting when he came to Providence, announced his decision to join up with the Friars on Ed Cooley's birthday. Coach saying yesterday that he'll never forget the day Nate Watson agreed to come to Providence. Ashton Langford. And ball goes to South Carolina.
How about the ball pressure from Hassani Gravett? Did not give up on the play, forced Langford to dribble it from one side to the other and take a bad shot.
Coach Martin saying yesterday in shoot-around he wants to challenge Gravett to be one of those premier options on the offensive side for South Carolina. Felipe Hasse with the three-point shot. Sophomore forward, 6'9", showing off the range, tying it up at 9 here. And quickly back in transition is Campbell. And an offensive foul.
It's one of those, when you take it that deep, at the college level, guys are going to stand up and make plays. Now, that's a tough play to make. It takes a little courage to take this right in the chest. But how about Langford making a stand and Campbell just out of control, trying to drive it into traffic.
Has battled through injury issues like we've seen with other players for South Carolina. TJ Moss with a foot injury coming back in the lineup. Here's Watson, one-on-one with Hasse, and a nice job defensively by the sophomore. Deshaun Bryant into the game, long three-point attempt by the freshman, and a quick one and done. Ashton Langford off the feed from Watson will go to the free throw line.
What a play by Watson. I mean, it was a great recovery by Hassani Gravett, and Watson makes chicken salad out of you-know-what. What a catch. He turns, keeps his feet, a good follow-up on the play by Ashton Langford, and you get foul shots out of it. Should have been a turnover, and Watson saved it.
Makai Ashton Langford out of Worcester, Massachusetts. High school teammates with Diallo. And again, talking about that depth off the bench for Ed Cooley.
Ed Cooley going with teammates. As you said, those two guys teammates. Also A.J. Reeves and David Duke were teammates on the AAU circuit. Ed Cooley keeping it local.
And out of bounds leads to another turnover, the fourth for South Carolina. Gets us to a timeout. Coming up next, we'll talk with that man, Ed Cooley, in a youth movement for the Friars. Back in Uncasville, Connecticut, Providence with an early 2-point lead on South Carolina here as Ed Cooley standing by with our Chris Patola.
Coach, 11-9 start here, two physical teams. What are you seeing?
I mean, really good basketball. The guys were rebounding the ball with too many turnovers.
You're changing up the defenses. What's keying the change of the defense?
Their personnel. You know, they're a really good team.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Ed Cooley, one of the most underrated coaches in the nation. As both these teams off to slow starts this afternoon. South Carolina shooting 4 of 14 from the field. Providence College not much better, 4 of 11. But they have the 2-point advantage in semifinal number 2. As White at the point. Driving the baseline, acrobatic shot taken down by Silva. Chris, from your perspective, what do you see from this South Carolina defense?
They're as aggressive a man-to-man as you will find. They're going to put tremendous pressure on the basketball. They're going to try to deny one pass away. And bringing Glavit in here, he really gives you that ball pressure that we're talking about, and it occupies the ball handler, John. Chris, both these teams are really physical in their defenses.
Otsar with the miss. You get a different vantage point of seeing Chris Silva up front. How big of a physical force is the senior forward for the Gamecocks?
He is. He's massive. He's a terrific athlete. He has enormous hands. He has 2 catcher's mitts for hands. It's amazing. But, and you know, the thing with him, he only played the game for about 3 years before he got to South Carolina, John. And so he hasn't played the game for a long time. And I think in his 4 years with Frank Martin, he's really learned how to intuit the game, how to understand the defensive concepts that they want. He should be one of the best big guys in that SEC.
Officials right now taking a look at that hook and hold that we just saw under the basket.
Yeah, and I'm glad they've done this year, because this is one of those things, especially on these rebounds, where, you know, Silva there is trying to gain an advantage. And to me, that's a foul on Chris Silva and should be called that way. And it's good that they're going to take a look at these now. I wish they would do them more quickly because it took us one look to determine that that was a hook and hold. But that happens a lot on rebounds, John. It happens a lot, you know, with offensive players working along the baseline, coming off the screens. They'll kind of hook that defensive player. So it's good to have that in the game now.
Chris, if you're in opposition of Chris Silva, what's the best way as a big man opposing a force like Silva to try to gain some kind of advantage against him?
You have to get him. Well, first of all, you got to block him out, because he'll get a lot of stud, his athleticism and his length off of rebounds. But you got to do your work early. You can't allow him to get deep position, because once he gets deep, again, he uses that size. He's become a more efficient shooter around the basket.
So they now upgraded this to a flagrant 1 foul against Chris Silva. That'll give Watson 2 shots and have Providence keep possession.
And it's one of those points of emphasis. I mean, they are trying to clean up physical play underneath, and they've now given them the opportunity to go to the monitor to look at these hook and holds, and if it is in fact that, which it was, it becomes a flagrant 1.
And now that is 2 fouls for Chris Silva, the co-SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Will take a seat on the bench for Frank Martin, who just simply shakes his head at his star senior. That's been an issue for Silva in his career in foul trouble. Diallo lost the handle of it, a turnover by Providence.
And that's one of those turnovers where the execution was there. It was a well-designed play. You get Diallo underneath, and you just can't complete it.
Kotsar tangled up. A nice defensive play by Diallo, and the arrow pointing to Providence.
And I'm sitting here right at the corner on the court watching Alpha Diallo get into these young teammates of his. I mean, that's the one thing Ed Cooley was talking to us about is what a leader he's become. He doesn't have a talkative team, but the one guy who will get into his teammates is Alpha Diallo, and right there after that play, goes up to all of them.
As the officials, it looks to be a check on the possession arrow. And they're going to give it right back to South Carolina after conversing. Frank Martin having the struggles of a young freshman team that he's dealt with Silva being the point person.
Yeah, I don't think that's right.
And Chris, this is a pro-Providence crowd making the trip to Mohegan Sun.
Well, I think there's a geographical advantage, no question about it. Only about 45 minutes.
The officials originally called possession back to Providence. Rob Riley, Bo Borowski, Chuck Jones, our officiating crew today. And this is becoming a lengthy delay. As Cooley and Martin were laughing moments ago as the officials are trying to figure this out.
As we know, they are good friends. They spent a lot of time talking yesterday after their practices. They are good buddies.
Two of the great personalities in college basketball. So possession arrow was back to South Carolina. Bryant with the miss on the three, and Providence going up tempo. As Isaiah Jackson off the mark on that shot, but a foul underneath the basket.
Providence fouls on 0-8 Watson. That's his first team score.
So that'll be the team's fourth foul for Providence. The first on Watson as Lawson checks back in. That appeared to be a backcourt violation, yet play continues for South Carolina. Chris, from your advantage point, how do you break through this 2-3 zone by the Friars?
Well, it's really spread out. They're bringing the wing guys so high up. You got to flash somebody to the middle. Either Hasse or Kotsar's got it right at that foul line area. Nice drive there from Gravett. The other thing Providence is doing is they're running these traps as South Carolina comes over half court, and it's catching those South Carolina guards off guard.
Gravett, who had a 18-point performance against Norfolk State back on Tuesday. Nice drive to the basket by the sophomore Ashton Langford as Providence extends their lead by 3. Lawson from way beyond the arc, tipped back into the hands of Gravett, and a fresh 30 for South Carolina. Here's another long three, banked it off glass by TJ Moss. Providence and South Carolina tied up at 14 apiece as we approach the 9-minute mark of this first half. In the corner, A.J. Reeves spots up for 3 as Watson with the rebound will go to the free throw line.
There's no better zone breaker than the top of the key bank shot 3. My goodness, how about that one? But how about Nate Watson on the other end? Caught it on the block, nice skip over the top, and then gathered himself for the offensive board. You know, he's not one of those guys, as we said, that they're going to throw it into on the post for him to necessarily go to score. But he collapses the defense. He's a willing passer out of there. And on a play like that, he's got the ability to go collect the offensive board off a perimeter shot.
Chris, from being a former coach yourself and having dealt with young talent, freshmen as well, how challenging is it for a team like Providence, known to have so many veterans? What's the biggest challenge you see in trying to develop quickly these freshmen like Reeves, like Duke for Providence?
Well, in a game like this, John, freshmen aren't necessarily prepared for the physicality of it. And one of the things Ed Cooley told us yesterday, he said, look, David Duke has great potential, but we got to go with our guys who are going to play and who are going to play well and not turn it over and take good shots. And I think the physicality, at least early in this high-level game, has knocked back these young players. And so we've seen Ed Cooley go to Malik White. We see Ashton Langford out there. Both these coaches also really keeping the opponent off balance, really changing up their coverages.
Ashton Langford spots up for three. And the rebound taken down by Hasse. Here's Lawson out of Toronto. Great feed to grab it for the bucket.
And a nice cut from behind the defense by Gravitt. What a finish.
And a reach-in foul that gets us to a timeout as Providence and South Carolina tied up at 16 apiece. On the other side of the break, we'll talk with that man, Frank Martin, the head coach for South Carolina. Providence tied up at 16 apiece for head coach Frank Martin. 4 straight winning seasons for this program. Yesterday, Chris able to catch up with Frank.
Frank, we know you're a relentless guy. Most people don't realize, though, you had to ask your now wife out 7 times before she went on a date with you. What did she not like about you?
I don't think she even knew I existed. I kept asking, and I kept coming. And here's the craziest part to the story. When she finally said yes, she didn't realize that she was going out with me. She thought she was going out with the whole staff to thank her for all her work. And so I pull up to pick her up, and I used to own a green Explorer, and there was another Explorer right in front of mine. She got in the wrong car.
You held a lot of jobs before you got into coaching. Your best job that you had before you became a coach?
My best job. Well, anytime you work the door at a club,
you were bouncing.
And you're single, that's a heck of a job. That's a heck of a job.
You worked under Bob Huggins. The best non-basketball Huggins lesson you ever got?
Oh boy. It's Hugs taught me be comfortable with who you are. That's it. You know, just be comfortable with who you are. Be who you are every day. Stand up for what you believe in, and don't give in.
There's a reason why Frank Martin is one of the best personalities in all of college basketball. We saw that yesterday.
South Carolina bounce on 2. Asani Gravitt. His first 2
He's one of those guys, you know, he's an old school guy. He's a high standard guy. He's tough on his players. His players love him for it. And he's, you know, the thing, there's no compromise. You know, like in a day and age where everybody's compromising something, especially for young people, that guy right there has his standards, and you're going to meet them or you're not going to be a part of what he's doing. And that's what I love the most about Frank Martin. And it's good to hear that his wife also has the same standards in who she goes out with.
When he said I was a bouncer, I said, well, never messing with you. Now that I know that you were a bouncer, I'm never messing with you. But it's interesting, too. People don't realize he struggled the first 3 years here at South Carolina before really turning this program around. And Lawson traveled with the basketball. 6 turnovers here for South Carolina.
Well, he took this program to a Final Four. I mean, are you kidding me? You know, and it's at a place where football is very important, as it is at most schools. You know, they trying to get people to come to games, and the investment in the program, they deserve that. I mean, he's done a great job with this program.
The lob inside to Khalif Young as the junior with the bucket. He'll head to the free throw line.
They do have a lot of big bodies, does Providence. Another good catch right there on the pass over the top. Just carving out space. Nice job playing through the contact.
As Young completes the three-point play, and with the foul trouble with Chris Silva on the bench with 2 fouls, you got to imagine that Providence is going to try to dominate in the front court. Hasse as well with 3 fouls. A 7-0 run here for Providence. As Minaya collects the loose ball and puts it in for 2. Duke and Reeves for Providence, their freshman stars, have combined for just 6 points in this first half, and yet Providence has a 23-18 lead on South Carolina. Here's Jackson partially tipped into the hands of Gravitt. Lost in the dribble drive, up and under move, unable to convert.
And a really good move to get inside the zone. Everything but the finish from Lawson.
Diallo, floater in the lane. And an over the back call that's going to go against Young for Providence.
It's one of the reasons South Carolina has stayed in the zone, the foul trouble that you're talking about. They're playing a little bit smaller with Kotsar at the 5. And that last drive by Lawson, so good. They've really, I think, settled against this Providence zone. Half their shots have been from 3. It's a South Carolina team only shooting 28% from 3 on the year, so it's not what they do.
Gravitt knocks down the 3.
And Gravitt tells Spatola to shut the heck up.
Gravitt, who's got 7 points in this game, had 5 threes in the win Tuesday over Norfolk State. Part of that Final Four team that made the run a couple of years ago for South Carolina. Here's Reeves, long range, and has his struggles continuing in this first half. Gravitt again from long range and knocks it down. Back-to-back threes for the senior guard.
He really struggled at the end of last season. He was, I think, searching for an identity, got off to a slow start this year, but he is one of those veterans, a redshirt senior in their backcourt.
An 8-0 run for South Carolina has given them a 1-point lead. Duke off the mark with the 3. And a travel that will give possession back to Providence.
And he's taking these from deep, so the pressure is late. But part of it is, look at the distance. Off the dribble there, where typically the percentages go down, Gravitt buries it, and the flocks are in full effect. Look at that dude.
Iggy for Michigan or Gravitt?
It's been a day of hair.
Gravitt, who's seen his shooting percentage increase every year since his sophomore season. Here's a turnover by Providence. That'll be the 8th and a reach-in foul.
You know, he doesn't start for them, but Gravitt gives them some instant offense off of that bench. He replaces those, those young guards. And really, there are going to be a lot of games where those young guards are going to struggle. Same for Providence. And to be able to go to Hassani Gravitt if you're Frank Martin, or to go to a Malik White if you're Ed Cooley, to bring those veteran guards off your bench. Gravett has turned this game around for them.
And we're seeing the value here today of that first guy off the bench for both South Carolina and Providence as Jackson comes down with the rebound. Here's Reeves, strong to the move, to the bucket, unable to convert. As Moss lost the handle for a moment, here's Lawson for three. And then over the back. Both teams struggling late in this first half, but South Carolina on an 8-0 run has a 1-point lead on Providence. Bench has come alive for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, the redshirt senior Hassani Gravett has come alive and really put South Carolina ahead in this game. The back cut there, he's been really active, brought some real energy off of their bench, and then the three-point shot, stuffing it right in my face. As I said, South Carolina, a team that hasn't shot it well, and they haven't on the year. But what a job by this guy early. And they're going to need him, as we said. You know, Lawson and Keyshawn Bryant really have bright futures. And I think for both these teams, these coaches are going to ride with who's the hot hand, who's playing well, because it'll become so variable as the year goes on.
And it started with the struggles against USC Upstate, where they went 0 for 18 from beyond the arc. Stony Brook just 9 threes in that loss to the Seawolves. And yet here today, the bench has been very key. 16 points for South Carolina, as we are now in our 6th tie in this first half. TJ Moss, floater in the lane, and South Carolina retakes the lead.
He's been aggressive too. He's kind of been the alter ego to Gravett against the zone. He's done a nice job penetrating, getting inside the paint.
The product of Memphis is TJ Moss, 5 points to help South Carolina. Watson unable to answer. Gravett there for the rebound. Moss, having dealt with a foot injury, missed the first 2 games of the season.
TJ Moss, like I said, he's done a nice job just slicing up that zone, getting in there, a nice floater, and it helps when you are coming up under the tutelage of guys like Penny, brand new head coach at Memphis. Look at that photo. That's a keeper.
One of the all-time greats from my youth, as I remember, Penny Hardaway.
I was actually more a fan of Lil Penny.
Do you know who the voice of Little Penny was?
Of course I do.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Chris Rock is one of my guys. I love Chris Rock.
Lawson can't convert on the 3. Penny Hardaway, a lot of great expectations with that Memphis program too. Should be a fun season to watch with him at the helm. Lawson comes down with it, and the over-the-back call against the Friars.
You know, with Diallo off the floor with his 2 fouls, this is where Providence goes on some of their droughts, where they don't know who they want to be offensively. They don't know who needs to get the ball, who can make a shot for them. It was Malik White at the end of the Holy Cross game, but without that guy to be sort of, let's get him the ball and he'll go make a shot for us. He's got the 2 fouls. They are searching for offense.
Nichols, the freshman, called for his 3rd foul. Puts Lawson to the free throw line. As we approach the final 2:35 of this first half, South Carolina, a 2-point lead. Winner of this game will face Michigan in the championship game tomorrow. As Duke, floater in the lane, short, and his struggles continue in this first half. And I always find it interesting too, Chris. Some freshmen just take that star power to a different level. Zion Williamson, for example, for Duke, and some others struggle with all the hype they have coming in, and David Duke is an example of that.
Well, I don't think he's struggling with the hype. He's figuring out that college is hard, especially for a guard. And, you know, things come so easily, especially when you're gifted with his size at that position. Things come so easily, and you realize that, my goodness, people are going to guard me, and they're going to force me into things I don't do well, and it just doesn't come as easily.
Providence has gone over 5 minutes without a made field goal. Down by 4. And nearly stolen away, finally does, corralled by Kozar. And South Carolina continues to defensively lock down Providence, who after that 3-for-5 start has missed 20 of their last for Providence College.
College is an adjustment. I mean, Javon Quinterly, the other co-Big East Rookie of the Year, is struggling as well. And, you know, and let's not discount the fact that Reeves has gotten off to a great start. So when your teammate, another regarded freshman, comes in and he's playing well and you're struggling, don't under-talk the psychological effect that could have on David Duke as well.
Moss out of the timeout, feeling it from beyond the arc. TJ Moss now into double figures with 10, and this bench continues to produce in this first half for South Carolina.
He kicked it. He kicked that ball.
Lawson the other way, strong to the bucket, and South Carolina has stretched their lead out thanks to a 9-0 run.
And Ed Cooley's not happy about that. That's an old school playground move right there. I've done that many times, and it works, as you will see. I mean, this thing gets kicked on the crossover. That's an old school playground get 'em type of play right there. And I don't think officials stood. That was blatant. Ed Cooley saw it, but heck, it worked, and it's 2 points on the other end for the freshman.
Ed Cooley, one of the great personalities in college basketball, has had his issues in this first half with the officiating crew. Yet he finds his team down by 9. What kind of momentum does Providence have to get in the last 69 seconds?
They gotta, well, 69 seconds grabbing momentum is tough. They got to figure out at halftime who's going to score the ball. And now credit South Carolina's defense, because this is what they do well. And I think changing up the defenses has been good, but they've done this, South Carolina, without Chris Silva on the floor.
Has sat on the bench with 2 fouls for a majority of this first half.
And I think the 2-3 zone has been good for South Carolina. It has forced Providence into settling.
Chris Monroe off the bench.
And that's not a good shot right there.
Lawson, the #1 recruit out of Toronto. As Bryant able to draw contact against Monroe.
Providence fouls on 2.
Mentioned the struggles for this Providence College offense, just 2 points since the 7:09 mark of this first half. Equal that to a South Carolina 9-0 run. The reason why they have a sizable lead here in this first half. Keyshawn Bryant to the free throw line, the freshman out of Winter Haven, Florida. An explosive 4-star prospect who had put up 21 points in the opener against USC Upstate, the most for a freshman in his debut in the Frank Martin era.
Yeah, he had a reputation as being a great athlete, which he is. I think what has shocked me is he is much more a basketball player than I ever expected he was.
An 11-0 run for South Carolina as Providence will hold for the final shot here with 15 seconds to go in the first half. A Providence team that shot just 23% in the first half. Duke, long 3 with a defender in his face. And that is how the first half comes to a close for Providence. David Duke with 8 points, including this three-pointer. As Chris Spatola standing by now with South Carolina head coach Frank Martin.
Coach, you were down 7 at one point. You're now up 8. What changed for you?
We stopped fouling. I mean, we're inept offensively. You know, we're getting nothing from Chris Silva, and so that makes us depend on too many first-year guys. But we'll fight you defensively. We just stop fouling.
A lot of zone in that half. Was that a product of the fouls?
A little bit of that, and then just what I've been doing with this team this year. Just we're a little too young, and you know, we kind of get rattled a little bit when people attack us off the bounce. And as our young guards grow up, we can eventually go back to playing more man.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
You have to appreciate the honesty of Frank Martin as South Carolina finished that first half on a 19-4 run. Quite the opposite for Providence, missing 21 of their last 25, finding themselves down 35-27 at the break. Basketball Hall of Fame tip-off here from Uncasville, Connecticut. South Carolina has built up an 8-point lead. And Chris, when you take a look at that first half for South Carolina, they got a lead mainly because Chris Silva was ineffective with 2 fouls, and they still were able to dominate.
Yeah, I mean, he's not really going to give you a whole lot offensively, but I think the switch to the zone actually was good for South Carolina. And as Frank Martin told us going to the break, they stopped turning it over. And I think that led to some of those, at least shots taken in in that first half. And then, I mean, we've really talked about Gravett and Hobbs and the job that both those guys have done. They were spectacular in that half.
Silva scoreless in 6 minutes on the floor with those 2 fouls that kept him out a majority of the first half. If you're Providence here, Chris, what do you have to do, not only in this first possession, but probably the first couple of minutes to get back into this game?
Well, right there, they try to go to Diallo on the block. I mean, you've got to run it through him, allow him to try to get some buckets. He was hobbled with the 2 fouls in the first half. The other thing, they only have 2 assists, Providence. 2 assists. Now, they only have 7 field goals, but the ball's got to move a little bit, and I think against the zone, it stood them up.
That's been a big issue for Providence this year. They've got more turnovers than they do assists. A nice floater in the lane by A.J. Lawson, the freshman out of Toronto. As Duke answers on the other end and one.
That was one of the bright spots in the first half. A guy who has really struggled, the freshman David Duke, was terrific in the first half and really buoyed whatever offense they did have with the 8 points. That's his 10th point there on the move. The shiftiness with the body at 6'5", the ability to create, the change of direction, avoids the charge. A good finish through the traffic and a chance to make it 3.
The co-preseason Big East Rookie of the Year, matching his point total from Tuesday's win against Holy Cross. Was shut out in the season opener against Siena. In fact, didn't get his first field goal until the under 4-minute mark of the first half in the loss to Wichita State. As for Chris Silva, there's been the issue in his career. 4+ fouls in 60 of 105 career games played. He's got 3 today.
Oh, there's a game earlier this year. He didn't play the last 10 minutes of the game because he couldn't guard the pick and roll. And now the foul trouble hobbles him today. And Frank Martin said it going off at half. Like, if he's not going to play, we got to move on and figure out who's going to get us through this thing. And I would imagine with the way that TJ Moss played in the first half, we're going to see him earlier than expected in this half.
Silva, who was named to the top 50 Wooden Watch list on the Karl Malone Award watch list. Again, on the bench for South Carolina with 3 fouls. Yet the Gamecocks hold an 8-point lead on the Friars. There's Diallo. Great move to finish with the left hand. Gravett gets the rebound and a fresh 30 for South Carolina. Anaya, the sophomore, the nice Euro step, and an answer on the other end for the Gamecocks.
That's just not good defense. I mean, he's able to get to the second level of the defense. There's nobody there, and part of it is South Carolina's spacing, so there's nobody under the basket. But once he got past his initial defender, he had space.
Reeves, no. A couple of tip tries by Providence. Diallo with the rebound will head to the free throw line.
They have to get Diallo going, and here's one of the things Ed Cooley is trying to do. Watch him go away here and then right back into the block. And then once he gets there, forget it. The freshman has no chance in stopping that. He goes away as if he's going to go set a screen, then he peels right back to the block. A good little set to get him an opportunity, and here he is at the foul line. They need this guy to put up buckets.
Well, he talked about the pressure of carrying the torch left behind by Kyron Cartwright, along with Rodney Bullock, Jalen Lindsey, those veteran players that are not here this year for a Providence team trying to make it to 6 straight NCAA tournaments.
Shoot it. That's got to go up if you're Diallo.
From the elbow, and the junior right back in the corner is Reeves for 3. Another offensive rebound and a reach-in.
It's amazing when your best player goes off the floor and when you're not hitting shots, how that can zap your energy as a team. And I thought that's some of what happened to Providence at the end of the first half. Diallo was out, they couldn't make a shot, and for a young team, the inability to make shots that'll affect your effort.
Here's Young, the junior, back iron that attempt. In transition, here comes South Carolina. Campbell, the grad transfer from Georgetown, spots up from the wing. And Young able to come down with it for Providence. Diallo, great pressure defense by South Carolina, leads to a turnover. Gravett on the fast break. Wow. Finishes with the left hand as the redshirt senior.
Hassani Gravett.
Frank Martin yesterday in shoot-around, Chris, told us he wants to challenge Gravett to be more of a consistent scorer this season.
This is defense to offense in overdrive. Here, just a bad decision there by Diallo, but watch once he sees the lane, the explosion, the change of hands. Nice job by Gravett.
And a foul against the freshman Lawson on the inbounds. And that'll be the 14th foul against South Carolina.
The other guy that has been unheard of, and Providence really needs to get going, is A.J. Reeves. I mean, they are a different team when he's making baskets. Has been so good for them up to this point. Got nothing from him in the first half.
Friars faithful coming on that short drive for Rhode Island. Diallo now into double figures with 10.
Another play to get Diallo on the block, get him a layup. I mean, the design on this is terrific. And this is a set to get Alpha Diallo on the block. Watch, just a little cross screen underneath. And he catches a good little delivery, but it's like a nice little cross screen, pin in. Diallo comes underneath, catches, and goes up nicely.
What makes him an effective shooter?
Well, I mean, he hasn't always been. You know, he has not always been an effective shooter. I think he's at a point in his career where he believes he's going to shoot. On plays like that, it's amazing how the percentage goes up when guys know the ball is coming to them. When a play is called for you, it's amazing how the percentage typically goes up. But he's worked at it. There's no question about it. He has worked at it. He's reconstructed his shot where I think his elbow is in a little bit more. He's become a more efficient perimeter shooter, but he's always been a bulldog underneath.
Lawson on the bench for South Carolina with 3 fouls. Silva with 3 fouls. Diallo asked to be the leader this year by Ed Cooley. The young freshman team highlighted by David Duke along with A.J. Reeves.
Counter, Frank Martin goes to the 2-3 zone.
Anaya in a double team. Draws contact. Providence fans thought it was a walk, but we take a timeout as South Carolina holding to a lead of 41-34 on the Providence Friars. Chris Spatola, we've got a South Carolina team dealing with a lot of foul trouble issues with some of their key stars, and yet here they are with a 7-point lead on Providence.
Without Chris Silva. Again, I think the zone has been good, and part of the reason they've gone to the zone is they're in foul trouble, and without Silva on the floor, you've got Mike Kotsar as the 5. But sometimes you find gold in odd places, and I think the zone, after this 3-quarter court pressure, has been a good find for South Carolina. It has really stood Providence up. And instead of guarding Alpha Diallo in those design sets, Frank Martin says, let's just go to a zone here.
Out of the timeout, Reeves with the bucket, and he'll head to the free throw line.
Nice pass here. I mean, again, there's Diallo making an impact, and A.J. Reeves getting himself into the heart of the defense, right at the foul line, which is that soft spot. Nice one dribble, absorb the contact, and finish.
Reeves, who opened up the year with a 29-point performance against Siena. That was the most points by a freshman on opening night in program history. And Ed Cooley was asked afterwards, and he said, point blank, if he stays all 4 years, he'll be the all-time leading scorer in program history for Providence.
If he stays all 4 years.
That's a big if. Here's Bryant off the mark. Kotsar there for the offensive rebound. Down to 7 on the shot clock for Campbell. To Bryant. Providence only down by 6, despite shooting just over 26% in this game. Reeves from beyond the arc knocks it down.
He's wired to score. He can really put him up in a hurry.
Bryant the other way, Watson with the rebound, and a chance on this possession for Providence to tie it up. And Jackson draws the contact.
This kid can really light it up, shooting 55% from 3 coming into this game. Believes he should be scoring the basketball. His teammates know it. And Providence has done a nice job after made buckets getting into that full court pressure. Last couple possessions has really, I think, sped South Carolina up, forced them in a couple tough shots. And momentum changing. And this crowd, this Providence crowd, coming alive.
We saw this type of spark Tuesday night against Holy Cross. They were down by 9, went on a 20-2 run. As Watson and Jackson and the rest of this Providence team pulling within 1. An 8-0 run for the Friars. Moss, front iron that attempt. Numbers the other way for Providence. Here's Duke with the bucket. And the many who made the trip from Rhode Island on their feet as Providence has orchestrated a 10-0 run, a 1-point lead on South Carolina. Ed Cooley's bunch loving life right now. The Duke is making it work. Now taking a 1-point lead on South Carolina. And the freshmen, Chris, have been a big reason why in this second half.
They have. David Duke has been terrific all game. AJ Reeves has come alive here in the second half. And I think, you know, Big Brother arrived on the scene in the second half, and Alpha Diallo, and I think it's given both these guys confidence. How about the strength and the finish there from David Duke, a guy who was kind of struggling coming in, came in with a great reputation. And then AJ Reeves, who's been lights out all year for them, quiet in the first half, been loud in the second half. And again, I think the arrival of Alpha Diallo, who's in foul trouble in the first half, has made the difference.
What are the intangibles that you see that he could be a great leader for this Providence?
He makes everybody better. I mean, he dropped the pass off on that break before we went to the commercial. It's like when your big brother walks out there at the park, right? And like all of a sudden now you feel better that, okay, big brother's here. We can kind of do some things and we got this thing under control.
Hasse on the miss, Kotsar there. And over the back call against South Carolina. That'll be his 4th foul, and the foul trouble here for Frank Martin and company continues to grow.
It's with both his big guys, so now he's going to try to platoon Chris Silva and Kotsar. Silva comes in for Kotsar. And the other thing, too, defensively for Providence, I think, has been the full court pressure. It has really picked up the tempo in this game, gotten it a little chaotic.
Grab it in the corner to Minaya. Slicing through this Providence defense to give South Carolina back the lead.
I mean, this was a good drive. This is not very good defense either. I mean, look at this. Like right by Watson, nobody slides over to help. I think John Brickley could have gone out there and made that layup.
Listen.
All right, maybe not.
I was a standout on my freshman team. There's a reason why they called me Brick, okay?
That was a parting of the seas right there.
Here's Reeves at the free throw line. Here's a guy named Big East Freshman of the Week. There was so much hype brought around David Duke, and AJ Reeves was the one who in that first week playing with Providence averaged 24 points, shot over 70% from the floor.
Well, he was the Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Massachusetts, so he was accomplished. But as you said, Duke was the one who came in higher ranked, more of a reputation. They were both teammates, AAU teammates.
Shot clock down to 9 for Hasse. Floater in the lane. Through contact, will go to the free throw line. And Diallo will be called for his 3rd personal. Hasse, a native of Chile. Frank Martin mentioned yesterday in shoot-around that he needs to be a playmaker. He needs to be a strong option off the bench for South Carolina. We're seeing that particularly based on the foul trouble with Kotsar and with Silva.
And Ed Cooley deciding to trust Alpha Diallo. I mean, this team has been so much better in the second half with him on the floor, trusting him with the 3 fouls that he won't pick up the 4th.
Inside, Watson. And they're going to wave off the basket. Silva was called for the foul. And that will be his 4th.
He's just been a step slow all day. He really has. He's been slow to react. It's been a tough day for Chris Silva. And this is what I mean. You know, here's the... Right there, Watson slips in, and Silva just a step slow in the rotation.
And it's a situation perplexing for Frank Martin, how you deal with this consistent foul trouble issue for your star player game in and game out.
he's getting into him now. I mean, as you said, it's been a historical battle. How about the jacket that Frank Martin is sporting today? That is fashion forward by Frank Martin.
I didn't realize I had so much in common with Frank Martin. We both love Frank Sinatra, and we both know what a good suit looks like. Nothing. Here's Reeves on the turnover. Fast break for Providence. And unable to convert on the second chance opportunity. Moss.
Right down Broadway again. Nothing at the basket as far as protection from Providence.
The sixth lead change we have seen in the second half is South Carolina with a 1-point lead on Providence. Watson, no. And over the back call. That will get us to a timeout. It's been a back and forth battle between these two programs, but South Carolina holding on with the 1-point lead. Inside the Mohegan Sun Arena, South Carolina and Providence in a good battle, especially in the second half. The Gamecocks owning a 1-point lead, and talk about a disparity in terms of free throw shooting. Look at the numbers. Providence just having more attempts at the line and converting when they can, Chris.
It's a big part of this game. I mean, when you're plus 14, I think that's right, plus 14 at the foul line, I mean, that's a huge disparity. And it's been a physical game. We knew that it would be coming in. But they've taken 25 free throws, and South Carolina's been in a zone for most of this game.
Foul trouble issues have been the storyline as well for South Carolina. The co-SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And Chris Silva, one of 3 players for South Carolina with 4 fouls.
Frank Martin's had to go to Jason Cudd off his bench to give him at least a few minutes on the interior.
Shot clock down to 5 as Moss from the free throw line. And reaching up high to grab that rebound was Duke.
Duke's a different player today. He has been so much better than he's been.
Diallo playing with the 3 fouls. As Jackson, he's got the range. That one was halfway down. Pressure defense by Providence. Hasse off the mark on that 3 attempt. As we reach the midway point, South Carolina and Providence, winner of this game, will move on to the championship game tomorrow against 18th ranked Michigan, who had no issues in the first semifinal against George Washington. Working around the perimeter. 3-point attempt. Duke off the bucket out of nowhere. Jimmy Nichols comes through. Providence a 1-point lead on the 7th lead change. Jackson.
Remember the name Jimmy Nichols. He is only scratching the surface of the player he's going to become, but he is super long, like go-go gadget arms long. I mean, this is a terrific play. Very raw offensively, but he's got all the physical tools to end up as a special player.
From Conway, South Carolina, had a number of offers Not one, though, from South Carolina. And there he is with the rebound. Diallo, up-tempo, beautiful feed to Watson, who finishes with the dunk. Partially blocked by Diallo, will stay with South Carolina.
It's a great run of the floor by the big guy, but watch the dime. What a pass. And who's that man? Alpha Diallo, once again, creating offense for the Providence Friars.
Numbers the other way, here's two! Feast Week on ESPN presented by Lowe's, and a little feast of dunk fest by this Providence College offense.
It has. Last three possessions all finishing in dunks. And Providence getting out and running. Their defense has been good, led to those breaks, and man, what a day this guy has had. Foul trouble in the first half, but we have seen in this second half the difference he makes, and it's a universal difference. 10 points, 9 rebounds, and the 4 assists. What a catalyst.
Closing in on a 4th straight game to begin this year with a double-double. And just to put into perspective, Chris, what has happened to South Carolina, they had built up a 9-point lead around the 15-minute mark. Since then, they have been held in check, just 6 points in over 7 minutes in this second half. Out of the timeout, grab it, long range. What is it about this Providence team? They seem to struggle for the first 30 minutes or so, and yet all of a sudden find their rhythm late in games.
I mean, it's not just one thing. You know, it's an aggregate, I think, of a lot. I think in this particular game, the physicality of South Carolina knocked them back. Not having Diallo for a stretch in that half hurt them. And they're young. I mean, they're a young team. Both these teams are young. And it's really, you know, South Carolina's got no help from their veterans. Both those guys have been in foul trouble. Silva and Kotsar. And it's not a secret. I mean, both coaches told us yesterday that the growing pains for both these programs, I mean, look at the two veterans. The growing pains for these programs are going to be numerous. But guys like that at the foul line, we've seen the 2 freshman guards for Providence that they've had. The futures are bright.
And even yesterday in shoot-around, Chris, Ed Cooley telling us the motto really is lose now and recover later. I mean, go through the growing pains with this freshman team to reap the rewards later on in the season.
Well, they're big enough, they're athletic enough, they're long enough. They've got all the physical intangibles. They got to just bring these freshman guards along, make them more consistent.
Diallo forcing his way in. That one nearly went down, but drawing the foul to head to the free throw line.
South Carolina fouls on AJ Wilson is 4.
Providence team that picked 3rd in the Big East preseason poll, their highest mark in the preseason poll since the Big East went to the 10-team format. Where do you see this Friars team in the mix?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's early for that league, which is to say there are a lot of indeterminates. Like, you know, St. John's adds Mustafa Heron, and he's made an impact so far. So how much better does that make them? Marquette gets blown out on the road by Indiana. Are they going to be as good as we thought? I think Providence has the pieces to do it. They've got a special player in this guy at the foul line. They've got 2 stud guards. And then there aren't going to be a lot of teams in this league that have the depth of size that they have. So I think they have a chance to be very good. I don't think the Big East will be as good as it was last season. So all that said, I think they can certainly finish in the top 1/3 of this conference.
Meanwhile, Villanova still recovering from that 27-point blowout loss to Michigan. And we saw this afternoon how effective the Wolverines are. Nice block there by Nichols. Second chance, though, goes for South Carolina.
Clearly, Providence has been a different team in the second half than they were in the first. So, if they are more like the second half team they've been.
Watson in the lane. Moss able to track down the loose rebound.
Nice drive.
Rabbit finishes with the right hand. He's got 14 off the bench for South Carolina on 6 of 10 shooting.
Those straight line drives have been a problem. A lot of it has to do with the spacing, but there's been nobody at the second level at the basket for Providence.
Duke making the contact, counted in the foul.
You know, the one thing about this backcourt too is David Duke is 6'5", AJ Reeves 6'6". That's a big backcourt, and that's a freshman taking that contact, absorbing it, and finishing with his offhand. Nice to see from David Duke today, and that's another point to your question about how good can this team be. They will go as Duke goes. He's their lead guard, he's their guy. If he comes along quickly, so will Providence.
He's now got 17, Hasse with 4 fouls. In the age of always comparing one player to another, do you see some kind of comparisons with Duke to Chris Dunn?
Chris Dunn was special, man. I'm not there yet, but yeah, physically I do. I mean, it's a fair comparison because of the physicality. You know, he's 6'6", or rather 6'5", about 200 pounds. So, I mean, like, David Duke's a big kid for a freshman. And that's what Chris Dunn had. Like, he was physically gifted.
Special player Chris Dunn was in his time at Providence. Here's Duke, the next chapter in the Friars' legacy.
We knew a star was arriving at Providence. He was born today, by far his best game, and he's done it from all areas. Driving the ball to the basket. Here he shows you that perimeter jump shot. Pass once again coming from Alpha Diallo, I would add, but got his feet set, squared it up, and what a day he's had. How about this?
20 points, 8 of 15 shooting. Duke, who was the highly touted prospect brought in by Ed Cooley, saying that you made my year when Duke made the phone call and said, I'm going with you, coach. Grew up less than a mile away from the college. And David Duke just putting on a show this afternoon. 12 of his 20 here coming in the second half.
Coach is living and dying through recruits. You made my year when a high school kid calls to commit, but shows you the pressure these guys are under.
Well, Ed Cooley, one of the charismatic coaches in college basketball, winner of this game, will move on to face number 18 Michigan in the championship game tomorrow here from Mohegan Sun Arena, 1:30 Eastern time on ESPN. And talking about what we saw from Michigan, we talk about veteran players. Charles Matthews put on a clinic in that first game.
They're one of the 5 best teams in the country this year. There is no question about it. They are terrific defensively, and they are playing so well in transition.
Largest lead of the game for Providence, 62-54, thanks to a 14-5 run for the Friars. Silva back into the game, and the takeaway by Diallo. Jackson calling for it. Why not? Silva from long range. And there's Watson underneath to get the rebound. What a turn of events here for Providence in the second half. A 17-5 run for the Friars, up by 9. Diallo finding Jackson with 3 on the shot clock. Nichols has to throw it up in a shot clock violation.
Shot clock violation. South Carolina ball.
It was interesting in our conversations yesterday with Ed Cooley about taking the chance of putting 3 freshmen in the starting lineup. First time he's done it this year, inserting Nichols.
Well, he believes they're 3 of his most talented players. And so, he, as he told us, he's going in the direction of talent, and they'll take their lumps, as you said, fail early, win later.
Timeout on the floor.
And that brings us to a timeout on the floor. Providence is rolling 4 minutes away from a matchup with Michigan in the championship game on Sunday. An 11-point lead for Providence with 4 minutes left to go in this game. And for the Friars, Chris, their main weapons have stepped up when they needed to.
We talked about veterans at the top. Alpha Diallo has shown up. We talked about freshmen. David Duke and A.J. Reeves have shown up. There's Diallo on the block going to work. Here's Reeves from deep. And then it's Diallo to David Duke at the top of the key here. Those 3 guys have really collectively come alive in the second half. And you can see what the potential looks like for this team. Look at those numbers on the day from those 3 guys.
And Diallo closing in on a triple-double. With 12 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. The veteran leader for this Friars team. Here's Silva. Jumper that falls. Unfortunately, it's been a non-existent day for Chris Silva based on the foul trouble. His first 2 points, in fact, in this game. On the shot clock, Diallo throws it up and knocks it down. Alpha Diallo once again stepping up here for the Providence Friars.
I think he wanted a ball screen, so he's telling Nichols to come over instead of ball. Instead, Nichols wants the ball, and Diallo gets creative, improvises, and what a tough shot.
There's a good lesson for the freshman. Here's Campbell as Kotsar. One-on-one with Watson. And a good box out, yeah. Coming up for the Friars. Going back to their game against Wichita State, what adjustments have you seen by Providence to have this sizable lead here against South Carolina?
Well, it's a collective effort offensively. I mean, they just didn't have the punch that I think they've had today. Duke was struggling in that game. And they've had moments, they've had lapses where they have not been good defensively, particularly off the bounce. But I think their energy has been much better in their man-to-man. And then in the full court, I thought that got them rolling. That full court pressure that they got into, I think started the run here and really got South Carolina out of their offensive rhythm.
Under 2:30 left to play in the second semifinal. Campbell, high off glass, a nice move by the grad transfer from Georgetown. Now a battle for possession. That will go to South Carolina. Frank Martin urging the officials for a foul there.
I think part of it is Jimmy Nichols came flying in at the end and did wrap up Felipe Haase.
Again, this is a South Carolina team just a couple of years removed from that run to the Final Four. What have you seen from this Gamecocks team that needs to improve if they're going to have success later on this season, especially in SEC play with how deep that conference is this year?
They got to get those two interior guys going. And they got to get Chris Silva going. Kotsar's got to give them something offensively. And then those young guys, those young perimeter guys have to continue to develop. Rabbit and Moss have been a real good find today. You know, the other thing that people need to understand about playing for Frank Martin is it's an adjustment. Like, to play the way he wants to play, how hard he wants you to play that man-to-man the way he wants you to play, it's not easy. And there's a reason this team was picked 11th in the preseason. A lot of new faces, a lot of guys they're trying to plug in there. And if you're two veterans, I mean, you're okay living with a down game for A.J. Lawson or Keyshawn Bryant, who hasn't been very good today. But if Silva and Kotsar are not showing up game after game, that's when South Carolina is going to really struggle.
Just saw the preseason poll in the SEC. 8 teams last year went to the tournament. This year, 3 in the top 10, including Auburn, who we're going to see in the Maui Invitational starting on Monday. But no longer is this Kentucky and everyone else's league. There's a lot of viable talent that can compete with John Calipari's Wildcats.
Oh, you're right about that.
Diallo just a rebound shy of a 4th straight double-double to begin the season. Nice, yeah, feet inside. Nichols comes down with the emphatic slam.
What a pass from Alpha Diallo.
He's got 6 assists. Silva drawing contact against Watson.
He is so unselfish. The help comes up, no rotation from the backside from Trey Campbell. He's just patient. Look, take him down, bully him a little bit, and then look at the length of Jimmy Nichols. I liked Diallo coming in. I think I'm developing a bit of a man crush.
I didn't want to say it before.
Is it starting to make you feel uncomfortable?
A little jealous, maybe. A little jealous. But he is certainly a star on this Providence team, and they need that veteran leadership with all the great freshman talent coming in. And he even said that pressure of making it to 5 straight NCAA tournaments weighs heavily on a guy like that. He doesn't want to end the streak. As we close in on the final minute, Providence will look to hang on to this one, and it should set up an incredible final tomorrow against Michigan in the championship game. As Watson putting the finishing touches on this one for the Friars.
Over yet. I'm actually surprised Frank Martin didn't try to foul that last possession. He ended up giving up the layup, but a quick bucket on the other end. I'm curious to see what South Carolina does out of this timeout. You assume they'll pick up. Do they try to play the foul game down 9?
So Providence with the advantage on South Carolina. Winner will face off with 18th ranked Michigan after their convincing win earlier today against George Washington. And this will be a good early test for whoever Michigan plays, whether it be South Carolina or Providence. So there may be an issue here with South Carolina having called a timeout when they didn't have any more timeouts. And I think that's what the officiating crew right now is looking at. Our officials, Rob Riley, Bo Borowski, and Chuck Jones.
Yeah, they did not have any timeouts left.
You and I have been in situations where we haven't seen stuff like this before. Northwestern last year with a technical foul to open the game.
Excessive timeout.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it is a technical foul. You knew they didn't have timeouts. I wasn't sure if it was Frank who called the timeout or not, but clearly it was. And as the official came over and told us, it's going to be a technical foul for Providence, and then they'll get the ball back.
I would not want to be in that huddle right now with Frank Martin. A frustrating move as Providence, with 2 free throws, a chance to really stretch out this lead.
Administrative technical foul against South Carolina, and had no timeouts remaining and called a timeout. So at the line, Alpha Diallo shooting 2.
Diallo taking the free throws here for Providence on the technical foul. Did you notice? I thought nobody. I loved it. That's how in the zone he is in today.
Just making me love him more. This is great. Just making me love him more. Look at this. A little sense of humor. Yeah. Yeah. That's
a bromance has been born.
That is fantastic.
Chris Spatola and Alpha Diallo. Final 40 seconds of this one. As Providence with the 8-point lead, a foul by Gravitt. As Diallo will go back to the free throw line. With just over 30 seconds to go, it looks as if Providence will have their chance tomorrow. As Ed Cooley and company preparing for Michigan. We've got a non-conference schedule that includes Rhode Island and a couple of road matchups against Boston College and Texas. From your standpoint, how does this Providence team match up against Michigan?
They're going to have to be better defensively. And the key with Michigan is you've got to get back. You can't take bad shots, and you can't turn it over, especially live ball turnovers. So transition defense is going to be huge. And they're going to have to be able to guard better off the bounce. They did not guard well in periods here in the second half off the bounce. There was 0 rim protection. And Michigan's going to space you out, try to drive you, and they shot it so well today. Michigan's really good. Michigan is really, really good. Providence is going to have to get the same offensive output that they got today from Reeves, Duke, and Diallo.
Duke and Diallo combining for 24 points in this second half, as Minaya has fouled out for South Carolina. Ed Cooley said, we'll know where our team is and what direction we're going with these games against South Carolina, potentially against Michigan in the championship game.
The interesting, too, in that game will be what Ed Cooley does with his big guys when Michigan goes small. That was the problem today for George Washington. One of the reasons that they went to the zone in stretches is the pick and pop with when Livers is at the 5 or when Brodziewski's at the 5. They go small. It becomes very tough. So can you play a Nate Watson? Can you play a Khalif Young against that lineup?
Possession will stay with South Carolina as the Gamecocks will fall to 2-2 on the season. Providence is going to prove to 3-1. And Ed Cooley clapping his hands, getting the Providence faithful on their feet here in Uncasville. And a nice tap away by Duke. And it's going to close it out here for Providence. What a second half performance by the Friars as they will advance to the championship game and await Michigan tomorrow here in Uncasville. So there you have it, 18th ranked Michigan, Providence in our championship game tomorrow, coming your way at 1:30 Eastern Time.